In this video, we're going to take a look at the Billy Carson Wes Huff debate where Billy Carson was absolutely eviscerated. We're just going to show some highlights here because there's already been some really good videos on the topic like Ruslan and What Do You Meme. The entire debate is on Wes Huff's channel, so I'll put that link in the description. And I'll just be tackling it from a different angle today. We're going to take a look at different cultural events and general trends online that led to the popularity of someone like Billy Carson. I think this angle is important because we need to understand the trends that led to the popularity of someone like him in order to prevent this from happening in the future. So we're going to go ahead and hop in, and then I'll have some commentary here at the end.
And if you listen to the podcast, the statement is according to the Sinai Bible. Okay, according to the Sinai Bible, Jesus wasn't crucified in that Bible. And that Bible predates the King James Version of the Bible. And the text there actually is about 12 to 14,000 differences between the Sinai Bible and the King James Version of the Bible, which came much later. And then also one of the things that were interesting is that they discovered the book of Jesus' wife, which is at the Harvard Seminary, which according to some scholars, it's a little controversial, but they claim that this is an accurate record that Jesus may have even been married, which then, adds more, if that's true, it adds more to the hypothesis that maybe he wasn't crucified.
So I work with manuscripts in my linguistic work. I'm an expert on early Christian scribal culture, and particularly in Greek and Coptic manuscripts. I actually have a facsimile. So I have a photocopy that was done by the British Library of Codex Sinaiticus that I work with in my office. So I have it here. I mean, I can go on right now, Codex Sinaiticus, and I can look up the end of, say, Matthew 27, where it has Jesus being crucified. And that's in Codex Sinaiticus, or, the John 19. Or any of the other ones.
That's where I was referencing, actually. I misquoted there. It's the Gospel of Barnabas. They say, Jesus was crucified.
Whoa.
Well, that doesn't exist in the Sinai Bible.
What happened?
It doesn't exist in the book of Barnabas.
They got that in there, but they couldn't get the date, the time, and everything else of the crucifixion. But then you go to the Sinai Bible and you discover, didn't really happen like that. Then you go to the Gospel of Barnabas and discover, didn't really happen like that.
The Gospel of Barnabas is a really interesting document because it is a known forgery. And so that's why I think it's important to get to these sources. So at the very start of the Gospel of Barnabas, which we only have 2 copies of, it says that Jesus spent 40 days on Mount Sinai, and then he came to the Jordan River and he walked to Jerusalem. But Mount Sinai is more than a week's journey away from Jerusalem, and neither Mount Sinai nor Jerusalem are close to the Jordan River. So never mind there not being a route from the Jordan River to around Mount Sinai or going to Jerusalem. But there are internal problems with the Gospel of Barnabas, which indicate that it shows no actual indication of evidence of coming from or even having knowledge of first century Jewish understanding. It actually says Jesus is the Christ, but not the Messiah, which indicates that whoever the author is, he didn't know that those were the same words. And I think a bigger problem is that the Gospel of Barnabas actually paraphrases Dante's Inferno, which was written in 1314. We have single copies of the Gospels that can be dated to the 2nd century that all do have the crucifixion. And so if we're relying on something like the Gospel of Barnabas, which is not just it's not that there's debate about it, it's that it's a known forgery. I mean, no one's referring to the Gospel of Barnabas as anything other than...
If you say it's a known forgery, yes, but I'm going to go with that. Let's talk about the Old Testament a little bit and leading up into the New Testament.
Well, hold on, because do you mind if I address the Gospel of Jesus' wife?
Sure, go ahead.
What was her name?
Yeah,
I'm trying to write notes like I know what I'm doing, but I'm just curious.
So the Gospel of Jesus' wife doesn't actually mention. So oftentimes what happens is that the text of the Gospel of Jesus' wife is kind of paralleled with the Gospel of Philip, which mentions that that Jesus would kiss Mary Magdalene on the mouth. And so those are kind of used in parallel to kind of for this argument that Jesus was married. So the Gospel of Jesus' Wife is in the Harvard Library. However, the reason we know it's also not legitimate is because even though the manuscript, the papyrus that it's on, was carbon dated to the 4th century, the text was actually copied from a PDF version of the Gospel of Thomas, known as Grondin's Interlinear. Once again, with our sourcing, I think we need to make sure that we're going towards not just early sources, but actually credible sources. And unfortunately, neither the Gospel of Barnabas nor the Gospel of Jesus' Wife are credible sources in terms of actually, and agreed upon by not just the vast majority of scholarship, but I don't know anybody in the field of papyrology, paleography, historiography, who actually refers to these documents as being legitimate.
That's fair enough. I can respect that. So let's go into the Old Testament a little bit. Genesis is a much smaller version of a much bigger story, but it's literally almost word for word from the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. The Epic of Atrahasis as well is also there in the Old Testament.
Yeah, have you read the Enuma Elish?
Yeah, I've done lectures.
Do you mind? Sure. Do you mind summarizing the content of the creation account in the Enuma Elish for us?
Sure. The Enuma Elish is a very ancient text discovered in the Library of Ashurbanipal. And the summary of it is that it really gives us an account, which is crazy, an astronomical account of the creation of our solar system. It talks about planets and moons gaining specific orbits around the sun. It talks about a huge planet named Tiamat, 4 to 6 times larger than Earth. Earth didn't exist at the time that this, according to the author of this text, which is pretty interesting. And then there talks about a nemesis of sorts. In the original version, it's called Nibiru, but in a more recent version, still thousands of years old, the name was changed to Marduk. Marduk is in the Jewish American Library, in the biblical text, in the Torah, and so forth. Very popular figure in ancient times in the religious books and text. Marduk wanted to be the destroyer, so Marduk is the one that during its next orbit towards Tiamat, crashed into Tiamat and destroyed Tiamat. A huge chunk of it swung away, recoalesced, taking the water, land, and organic material, which basically recoalesced as our planet here, Earth. And the rest of it broke up into pieces. Some of it turned into the asteroid belt. Other parts of it were thrown towards the sun, and some were thrown towards the inner Oort cloud, towards the outer edge of the solar system.
3 days later.
If you read the translation of the planet Mars and to English. And then they went to battle. They were going to go to battle in South Africa against Enki and Lil and Anu. And they come to terms without going to battle. They argued that they needed women, human women, believe it or not. And they also wanted a workforce. They didn't want to continue to do the labor. They were cleaning out the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, digging canals, building cities on Earth, and according to the text on Mars, not according to me. And a decision was made by Enki and Anu and Enlil to allow this experiment to happen, where they would take the existing hominid here. They would slay one of the gods, meaning that they would, in my opinion, that doesn't mean that they're going to kill it, but somehow, some type of genetic modification or manipulation, in my personal opinion, that's my personal hypothesis. But in the end, it ends up being that human beings are now doing a lot of this labor and worshiping these people as gods, as they, my personal opinion, masqueraded as gods. A lot of stories there, parallel stories that you see in the Bible, even the Tower of Babel incident and many other crazy stories that are in the Bible. You can find a lot of those true stories in the ancient texts, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, where you can find the true story of Noah. They found the Noah tablet to give him instructions on how to build the ark. It wasn't a big boat. It was a round disc that he built with sections cut up on the inside like a pie. That was discovered about 4 or 5 years ago. I believe it's at the British Museum now. So there's a lot of text that's just been covered and copied over into the biblical text. And I think that, in my personal opinion, a lot of people are just became a cargo cult, worshiping people that were masquerading as gods. I do believe in God, by the way. Let me make this clear. I believe in God. I believe there's a creator of the universe. I believe that the mathematics, the quantum physics, all proves that. The fact that we're here, I believe this universe is imbued with a divine energy and a divine spark that lives inside of all of us. I just don't believe that the God of the Bible is truly the creator of the universe. I don't think that God needs money. I don't think that God needs.
Sure. Do you mind if I just jump in here for a second? Because I think we've kind of gone on from the original question. I appreciate that. I do have a few issues with your summary, although I think I have read the Akkadian version. My Akkadian's not great, but I sat down with a seriologist friend and we walked through it a couple of years ago. What are the actual kind of parallels there that you're looking to? Because as someone who's read both, I not only do I not find parallels, I actually, and this is the majority of ancient Near Eastern scholarship with me, think that Genesis chapter 1 is actually an apologetic against documents like the Enuma Elish. So what are the parallels there?
Separated the waters from the waters, for example. That's in the Enuma Elish, and that's also in the biblical text.
Okay, that I would agree is a parallel. The only reason I highlight that is that if you're making this the argument, because if you brought it up, and I mean this with all due respect, there are superficial parallels. I would agree. You know, the separation of the water, the concept of the earth being formless and void. That's also in the Enuma Elish. However, I think all the other details, you know, it's the details that make the difference. And if we're looking at not the superficial crossovers, but the actual themes and concepts of what it's saying, you don't have a creation within 7 days.
I'm not going to take the Enuma Elish and put it into the biblical text. There are certain words that they utilize that let me know that they copied it from that text. Like, for example,
so what words?
Separating the water from the waters, the void, the earth being void. That information is literally just copied over. So it tells you that somebody saw that and said, let me add it to this book right here. Or let me add it to the scripture or this papyrus, because it wasn't a book yet.
So the reason why I say it's actually an apologetic against that is because the purpose of the Enuma Elish, which the Babylonians read every Babylonian New Year, was to point out the fact that the deities, and there's countless deities in the Babylonian pantheon, they actually come from the created order. So they're not outside of time and space. They actually come from the created order. And when they die in this battle, right, when Tiamat is defeated, the defeated gods become the earth and the sky and the plants and even you and me. And in that sense, the theme is that you don't actually have any purpose or end result, and you're not created in the image of God. In fact, in the ancient Babylonian system, only the kings were created in the image of God. And what we see that is counter to that is that even, sure, there's superficial, divided the waters, but we find that in almost every society and culture. That's not a parallel as much as it's just a generality. I would say what we see within the biblical account is that God purposefully creates. There's only one God. He purposefully creates, and then he creates, and it's good. And it continues to say it's good 7 times. And then at the end of chapter 1, just for, the thick people in the original audience, it says, and then it was very good. And then he creates humanity, not kings, but simply the humans that he creates in God's image. And they have purpose and meaning, and that instills them with this creation order. And that's not what we find in the Enuma Elish. In fact, we find the opposite in the Enuma Elish, is that the created order is not good. It's a mistake. And that you are not created in the image of God. And there's a reminder that regular people are not created in the image of God.
So as you can see, that was a complete masterclass by Wes Huff. Nothing needs to be added. I think he did everything that needed to be done in that debate. But I'll just be analyzing the popularity of Billy Carson from 3 different trends. And so the first trend is going to be the influence of new atheism on alternative spirituality. The 4 horsemen of atheism, if you don't know, Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchin, and Daniel Dennett, I think that played a pivotal role in shaping the cultural environment that indirectly influenced the rise of alternative spirituality. Their critiques of traditional religion encouraged widespread skepticism and deconstruction of religious dogma, prompting many to seek new spiritual paths. However, their materialist worldview often failed to address deeper emotional and existential needs, leaving a spiritual void for individuals yearning for meaning beyond atheism. And by rejecting objective spiritual truths, they inadvertently popularized the idea of subjective truth, which is a concept that aligns with alternative spirituality's emphasis on personal empowerment and self-defined beliefs. And their promotion of rationalism and demystification, while intellectually appealing to some, may have also driven people towards systems that embrace mystery, wonder, and esoteric knowledge. This shift was further amplified by the broader cultural trend of secularization and moral relativism, which reoriented society's understanding of truth from a universal external construct to a deeper personal and internal one. In this context, alternative spirituality thrives by offering flexible frameworks for self-discovery and empowerment. Figures like Billy Carson epitomize this shift by blending spiritual and scientific ideas to appeal to those disillusioned by traditional religion and strict materialism. By critiquing mainstream narratives and offering access to esoteric knowledge, Carson and similar figures meet the growing demand for personalized, non-institutional sources of meaning. Together, the legacy of New Atheism and the cultural embrace of relativism have created fertile ground for the modern explosion of alternative spirituality. And the second trend I want to talk about is the role of social media in promoting alternative spirituality. Social media platforms, driven by the attention economy, have fundamentally reshaped how people engage with ideas, prioritizing sensational and engaging content over depth and rigor. Unlike traditional settings like libraries, where individuals intentionally seek knowledge with a focus on serious research, social media encourages passive consumption and rewards virality. This has also created fertile ground for wild, unconventional ideas like ancient aliens and hidden technologies that captivate audiences with their novelty and mystery, often overshadowing traditional religious beliefs that may appear rigid or uninspiring in comparison. The blending of education and entertainment, or edutainment, further amplifies this trend, as charismatic figures like Billy Carson use compelling visuals and storytelling to make alternative spirituality both accessible and entertaining. Additionally, social media fosters skepticism of traditional institutions and creates echo chambers that validate and amplify these alternative narratives, reinforcing their appeal in a world increasingly shaped by distrust and a craving for wonder. And the third trend I want to look at is alternative spirituality as a response to modern societal challenges. The appeal of alternative spirituality across ideological lines can be seen as a response to widespread frustration with traditional institutions and modern life's pressures, with manifestations differing based on cultural, generational, and ideological context. Younger individuals, often disillusioned by organized religions and facing economic instability, are drawn to practices like mindfulness and manifestation for personal peace or empowerment. Meanwhile, older generations, having witnessed decades of institutional failures, might turn to esoteric traditions for deeper meaning. Current leftist ideology, which in some views promotes policies like open borders or expansive immigration, is critiqued for potentially leading to the erosion of social cohesion in historically homogeneous communities. And according to some research, this could disrupt social ties due to cultural differences and integration challenges. Additionally, in sectors like agriculture and services, an increase in low-wage immigrant labor is argued by some to depress wages for local workers, contributing to economic insecurity. Critics argue that an overemphasis on identity politics within leftist agendas might foster division and feelings of victimhood, further alienating individuals from each other and from traditional societal structures. In this context, alternative spirituality emerges as a way to reclaim personal power, offering metaphysical agency and a sense of belonging that transcends political divides. For those on the left, it might reframe systemic issues through a lens of personal growth and liberation, while for those on the right, it could resonate with ideals of individual sovereignty against perceived overreaching institutional control. With globalization and social media, access to a broad spectrum of spiritual practices has never been greater, making alternative spirituality a versatile response to the sense of alienation and fragmentation in modern society. And I think by understanding these trends, we can make the steps necessary towards reaching those that feel alienated by society as Christians. That's going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed it, drop a like, subscribe, comment. I post generally about religious and political topics, and I post about weekly, so feel free to check back with me, but that's going to be it. Peace.